Not too long ago, I actually ordered a DNA test from Ancestry.com. I was very surprised to find that 4% of my DNA is actually Jewish. Unfortunately, I have been unable to find out anything more about it other than it's from my father's side of the family. It was a very interesting and worthwhile experience, and something I would very much encourage other members to do, as what they find out might actually surprise them. Mr. Speaker, the hatred of the Jewish people is ancient. Ideas that Jews are untrustworthy, manipulative and selfish are long-standing. Conspiracy theories claiming that Jews have some sort of national or global control over political and financial events and institutions have always been around that we know are complete nonsense. The Institute for Jewish Policy Research compiled a report which concluded that approximately 30% of people in the UK hold anti-Semitic views. Over 100 incidents have been recorded each month, is now commonplace according to the Community Security Trust. As the motion states, there were nearly 1,700 anti-Semitic incidents last year across the UK. Northern Ireland has its fair share of such incidents. It was only recently that Jewish gravestones were damaged in a cemetery on the Falls Road in Belfast. This abhorrent incident saw 10 graves in a walled-off section of the cemetery damaged, some of which dated back to the 1870s. This was a sinister hate crime which was rightfully condemned across the political spectrum. The same cemetery was also attacked in a few years before that, with 13 graves being damaged in that incident. Destruction is nothing new in anti-Semitic attacks in Northern Ireland. In 2004, the blue plaque for Shimon Peres, former President of Israel, who was born in Belfast, had to be removed from a house in Clifton Park Avenue following such attacks. What is particularly worrying about the statistics cited in the motion is that in 2008, the number of such incidents stood at just over 500, meaning that these incidents of hate have tripled in the last decade. Only 2 years ago, a Jewish director came to Northern Ireland as part of a tour of the British Isles that he was filming. Some members may recall the video he filmed at a bar in the Bogside in Londonderry, in which many anti-Semitic comments were made. These included the Israelis are scum, Jews are the scourge of the earth, and worst of all, that the only thing Hitler did wrong was that he didn't kill enough Jews. That's quite shocking. Upon completion of his visit to Northern Ireland, Mr. Tenenbaum estimated that he'd found anti-Semitic views in 70 to 80% of people that he interviewed. He said that he had never seen such anti-Semiticness as he had in Northern Ireland, and that it was frightening. He also claimed that this one incident was representative of his wider experiences here. That these individuals felt so comfortable expressing these views on camera is deeply troubling and should be a concern to us all. It shows us that these people do not fear any repercussions or feel any shame. It is particularly alarming that this hatred, as old as time is, becoming increasingly apparent on our university campuses. The CST has found that anti-Semitic incidents have increased substantially over the last several years on campuses, recording a very concerning 40 incidents a year when most students were not even at university. It should be noted that reporting mechanisms are not always adequate, so it is likely that such incidents are underreported to universities. The report by the CST has recommended that universities adopt this definition, and perhaps this debate will encourage our universities to do so. Several years ago, we saw the Students' Union of Queen's University oppose the visit of the Israeli ambassador Mark Regev, calling for his invitation to speak to be cancelled. The ensuing protests during his visit saw a participant having to be restrained from following the ambassador's car. Of course, people are entitled to protest. The IHRA is clear. Criticism of Israel, similar to that levelled at any other country, is not anti-Semitic. However, discussions about Israel in a way that targets Jews as a collective and the rhetoric surrounding discussions of Israel can stray easily into anti-Semitic rhetoric. Universities should be places of open debate and discussion, and it is my belief that it is better to engage with those that we disagree with in a constructive way. Perhaps the well-known scheme in the lessons from the Auschwitz project, it takes sixth form students from different schools on trips to Auschwitz and includes several seminars. They also are able to hear testimonies from Holocaust survivors having been to Auschwitz. I would say go and visit, it will change your life. Also alarmingly is the increase in prevalence of anti-Semitism in our politics. Only one has to look at the Labour Party to see how commonplace and mainstream anti-Semitism is. The chairman of the Belfast Jewish community expressed his concern over the current state of the Labour Party, agreeing that comments made by the chief rabbi regarding anti-Semitism taking roots in the party are reflective of how the local Jewish community feel. The Equality and Human Rights Commission have found the party to be in breach of the Equality Act. Closer to home, in the Republic of Ireland, a Sinn Féin TD was recently condemned for tweets that she put out. The tweets linked Nazism and Israel together, calling staff at the Israeli embassy monkeys. At the point, the Jewish Representative Council of Ireland called upon the party to adopt the definition that this motion is about, and it's notable that she did not face a suspension or any other disciplinary hearing. I therefore think there are two key takeaways that should really concern us moving forward when it comes to anti-Semitism. The first is the ingenuity of those who are determined to spread their hate and make comment about anti-Semitic attacks. The targeting of online meetings between local Jewish communities and relevant supportive institutions demonstrates the ability of those offenders to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Secondly, I believe that more awareness is needed that the incidents reported often relate to our news cycles. The hatred of Jews can be worked into stories with no links to Jewish people. The very beginning of the pandemic saw a high number of incidents linking Jews in some form or other to COVID-19. This follows a pattern. When the issue regarding the Labour Party and anti-Semitism peaked in the news, there was a peak in the number of incidents related to the Labour Party. Around Holocaust Memorial Day, there is a peak in the incidents of Holocaust denial and in comments linking Nazism to Jews and Israel. Our news cycles are heavily linked to the type of anti-Semitic abuse experienced by the Jewish community. The real substance of this motion is to call on the Assembly to endorse the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition on anti-Semitism. The definition is as follows. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jews or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish communities, institutions and religious facilities. There is also a list of examples of what anti-Semitism involves, which can be found on their website at holocaustremembrance.com. The definition came about based on a simple premise. If anti-Semitism is to be tackled, then we must know what anti-Semitism is. The IHRA's Committee on Anti-Semitism and Holocaust Denial then worked to build the definition quoted in the motion. It was formally adopted by the IHRA in 2016. The purpose of the definition is set an example of what is reasonably conduct in an international level. It gives guidance to countries as to what is acceptable and what is unacceptable, and it also is useful as an educational tool. Importantly, it can also help relevant authorities in the collection of data regarding the prevalence of anti-Semitism in our society today. The UK adopted this definition of anti-Semitism at a national level. It has been in place since 2016. It has also been adopted by the Scottish and Welsh Parliaments. The Welsh Government has also taken further action to tackle anti-Semitism. They arranged training on the topic for government officials, delivered by a local leader within the Jewish community, with a focus on the IHRA's definition, and have also invited a Holocaust survivor to speak to officials. In Scotland, Jews remain 30 times more likely than others to have been targeted for their religious beliefs. The UK is far from alone in holding this stance on anti-Semitism. There are too many countries on the list, but some of those that have adopted the definition include France, Germany, Canada, Spain, Italy and the United States. The definition has also received support from the United Nations, the European Union and the Council of Europe. We are therefore the only part of the UK that has not adopted the IHRA's definition. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, anti-Semitism incidents have risen to an all-time high. Particularly concerning is how mainstream anti-Semitism seems to have become. In our politics, in our universities and on our online platforms, these views are being unacceptably legitimised, and I am deeply concerned by the lack of action to tackle this growing problem. The IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism and its examples have been adopted by many countries and organisations across the world. We remain the only devolved nation of the UK not to adopt that. Adopting the definition would clarify the meaning of anti-Semitism, what constitutes anti-Semitism, and provide us with guidelines to assist in the recording of these incidents. This would allow us to have a greater understanding of anti-Semitism in Northern Ireland. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I cannot accept the amendment because while it says the right words, it leaves out the endorsing of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition on anti-Semitism. I was surprised the amendment was allowed because of this. However, one must question the motives of the amendment, because by not supporting the motion, they're sending out the wrong message. I call on the Assembly to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.